Alright, let's talk about the van. You see, in a big steel box like my van here, the metal can act as one giant drum. And that doesn't make for a very comfortable experience. So, what do? Noise cancellation headphones are nice, but for your passengers, so how do you like the new van? What? Not so much. So we are going to be using some of this sound deadening material that you can buy off the internet. Time to get to work. Stopped filming yesterday because it started raining and I have to have the van open. I didn't want it to get wet, but it's still raining. So we're gonna push through the rain and get all the work done on the van today anyways, hopefully. First thing on the agenda is getting everything out of here, get this big old seat bench thing out of here. This is gonna be the hardest part because I think this is like 100-something pounds. Rip the carpet out and then start putting sound deadening in, hopefully. Fingers crossed, we'll see. I don't really know what I'm doing. Now this was actually a part I was really worried about because as you can see, all this floor was completely hidden and the guy had done rust prevention on the underside, but I couldn't see if, I mean, this floor could have been completely rusted out and I would have no idea. The van looked like it was in great condition, it looked like it was really well kept, but this was completely hidden. I would have had to tear the seat out, tear the carpet out in order to check this. So I didn't do that before I bought the van. With my fingers crossed that this wasn't just a total crapshoot, but it looks amazing. I'm super happy with this. As you can see, there's not really any rust problems anywhere. The paint looks really good. It doesn't look like it was abused or anything. The only spot that has a little bit of trouble is just right here. There's a little bit of rust and a little bit of paint peeling, but it's just surface rust, so I'll be able to fix that really quick and then start the rest of the build. It is funny just how many holes are in this thing from, I assume, where seats used to mount. I think there used to be seats right there and seats right there. Funny because these holes literally just go directly to the outside. There's nothing below those besides air. This one over here is even worse. It literally just goes straight to the suspension out there. You see my tire. So I'll definitely have to seal up some of these holes, but actually it makes for great mounting points for all the crap we're gonna put in here. All right, let's do some rust repair. First up, we're gonna grab our wire brushes. And as you can see, we have the rusty, peely spot right here, so I'm gonna start hitting it with a wire brush, and not only will this remove some of the rust, but it'll also chip up the rest of that paint. Looks like we also have some buildup over here. And to be really thorough and make sure that this rust never spreads anywhere else, I'm going to be using some of this CRC Evapro Rust. So basically neutralize any rust that is there, keep it from spreading, and just keep it good, clean metal for all the years to come. So I'm just going to pour a little bit of this on the actual spot in both these areas, and then work it in with a brush. I'm gonna kind of wipe it all away with a paper towel, and man, look at how much better that already looks. We're already down to the bare metal, most of the rust is completely gone, and luckily this van really is in good condition, and it was just basic surface rust, nothing crazy. Now to seal in that raw metal, I'm gonna be using this bed liner. This will make sure that no further corrosion happens, and it will protect the area. This is also what I'm gonna be using in the entire interior of the van to kind of seal it and protect it and make it last as long as possible. You could just throw an interior in this thing without doing any of this kind of stuff, but there's a possibility that eventually your floor is going to rust out, eventually the wall is going to rust out, and I want to do this right. I want to make sure it lasts as long as humanly possible, and also not have to worry about it rusting out. I'm going to dip a little bit of the paintbrush into the bed liner, and then just paint it on to the raw metal area. Make sure we get good application, get the whole area. And the trick with the brush is to actually pat it down like this so that you don't get the brush strokes like that. Just pat it down and you start to get that actual like bed liner texture. That is looking much, much better already. Alright, this is all now rust protected and sealed. And as we come and look over here, all of this, you can see there's a little bit of a lip right here. This is actually the factory sound deadening right here. You can see this is just the metal of the car, and then here's the sound deadening on top. And that of course is there because this whole section right here is where the engine is. So while you didn't get sound deadening along the whole car like modern cars, you did get it over the engine, which was nice. And I could technically remove all of this and apply my own. You can put like dry ice down and alcohol and stuff and then chip it away, but that's like a week's worth of work and I just don't have that time. And honestly, this is probably gonna work well enough, especially because the bed's gonna be over here, so there's gonna be enough sound deadening in this area. What I am gonna do is bed line over all this as well. Not only does the bed liner protect it and seal it in just like the rest of the car, but it also acts as a very small amount of sound deadening as well. And it'll just be nice to have all of the interior of the van one cohesive color. All the white space that you see along the edges here where the old interior used to be are also going to be painted with the bed liner. A lot of this stuff has like a weird yellow hue where the glue used to be to hold on the old interior. You can actually see this tiny little piece of fabric right here is what the old interior used to look like. So the bed liner will cover up all that old glue and of course protect it. All right, day number 2. Now that the interior is completely bed lined and done drying overnight, it is time, finally time, for the sound deadening. All right, so what you're supposed to do with this stuff is, it's pretty simple. It's just a sticky back. You peel off the sticky back and then apply it onto whatever surface you're gonna sound deaden. You're supposed to have like a metal roller that rolls it on to get a really good application. I don't have that. I'm not doing it 100% proper. I did order one and it got lost in shipping. Then I went to try to go find one at the hardware store and I could not find one. So we're just gonna press it on. It should be good enough. There's many different names for this stuff. There's Kill Mat already in the van. This stuff is Silas. This is actually their 5mm. It's a little bit thicker than the stuff that's already in the van. Of course, the thicker it is, the more it'll actually deaden the sound. And at the end of the day, it's all kind of the same thing. It's just this butyl rubber. And this stuff, even if you don't apply it great at first, it'll eventually conform to whatever surface it's on. So I'm not too worried about not having the right application tool. Yeah, it's just, if you look right there, you can see the butyl rubber, and then on top is just like this foil. And this kind of helps with the sound deadening, and it also acts as a tiny little bit of insulation. Now the only big challenge with this, besides just the time it's gonna take to apply all this to the van, is gonna be these ribs in the floor. If this was just perfectly flat, it'd be super straightforward, but these ribs are gonna make it kind of challenging. I'm just gonna peel the backing off, and you can see it's pretty flexible. This is the thicker stuff, so it's not as flexible as some other stuff. And then I'm gonna kind of line it up with where I want it to go, right in the corner. And then instead of applying it all at once, I'm actually gonna work my way over from the edge outwards, and that way I can actually get into all the grooves without it kind of making any gaps or bubbles. Main priority here is gonna be filling in all these little contours in the floor, making sure the actual rubber is against it and not just floating above it. Seems to be working pretty well. You can see it is actually contouring to the shape of the van's floor. And you can already hear a difference in the sound. This is way more deadened, so that's awesome. Something that's gonna be really important in this process is making sure all the holes in the floor are punched out in the mat. So whenever I lay the mat over, I need to punch a hole into the mat so that I can still access the holes later on. Find where that hole is and punch through. Now that I have my hole, I'm actually gonna line the hole up first and then apply the rest of the mat to the car. Making sure, again, to follow all the contours and get as best contact with the actual floor of the van as possible. Yeah, now it's time to apply this to the rest of the floor. So for sound deadening to be effective, it actually doesn't need to be completely applied like I did to the floor here. It just needs to kind of be in the center of whatever is acting as a drum, you could say. So right here, you can see I have a big panel. This is just really thin metal. And you can see it almost sounds like a kind of drum. Whereas over here that has sound deadening, this is kind of the equivalent of putting your hand in the center of a drum whenever it's, making noise. So this is actually soaking up a lot of the vibration and dampening it, even though it's not covering the entire panel. So the previous owner put that stuff right there, but he didn't do this right here. He did that. I don't know why he didn't do this. So I'm gonna do this just by kind of measuring out. I just kind of want to fill this center section here. Actually put it up against where I want it, and I can actually just mark it with my fingernail where I want to cut it. Peel this bad boy off. And then now this little area that was kind of acting as a drum before with that sheet metal is now dampened and has some rubber behind it. And then if we hit it, you can see this is making a lot more noise than this is. Because this is still acting as a drum, whereas this is actually dampened. Sweet. So that means it's working. I can just fill in some little gaps like over here with all these little scraps. And just like that, the entire interior has been completely rust protected, rust neutralized, and then bed lined and sealed in. Now we have a thick, layer of sound deadening on the floor that will provide great sound isolation and just a little bit of thermal protection from the cold floor or a hot floor depending on the day. Now it's time to get an interior back in this thing and to go give it a test drive to see if we actually did anything or if I just spent a bunch of money and a bunch of time doing nothing. All right, let's see. Yeah, I can already hear a difference. That floor was literally just like 3-4 millimeter thick metal, so super thin metal, and then the ground, like the outside, so there was not much there. Yeah. The engine already sounds quieter. That's hilarious. Okay, let's get on the road. Oh yeah, I can definitely tell a difference already. We're not even moving yet. It is so much quieter in here. Wow. I don't know if it's gonna come across on camera because the mic will automatically correct to the same amount of volume no matter what the actual volume is. But this is definitely quieter, wow. The lower bass notes, especially from the exhaust, are still there. But that like kind of tinniness, kind of like inside of a steel drum kind of feel is completely gone. Yeah, that is a huge difference. Granted, still much louder than a normal car, but so much quieter than it was. With stuff like this, a van build, there's so many different options with every single little thing you look at. It's oftentimes pretty overwhelming. And if you get one thing, people will tell you you should have got another. If you get that thing, people will tell you you should have got another. It's this whole kind of overwhelming mess of options and choices and planning, honestly, because if you do one step wrong, you have to go back and redo that step. It can really suck and take out a lot of time. So it's kind of relieving to have the first step of this van build, the interior done, and for it to actually be functional. It looks much better, it sounds much better. It makes me excited to work on the rest of your interior, and man, I cannot wait to get this interior done and to be actually on the road living out of this thing. So yes, clearly sound deadening works, and for a van that you're going to be spending a bunch of time in, I think it is so important to have something like this. It is pretty expensive, especially if you had a bigger van. That little tiny box that just covered the floor was like $100. So if I had to do the floor and the ceiling and all the walls and all that kind of stuff, it would have been pretty expensive. But man, for something you're going to be spending so much time in and spending so many miles in, I really think it's worth it. Not just for your comfort, but honestly for your sanity. I definitely understand why van builders, people who do this for a living, sound deadening and good insulation, like they always say, you want to go for the high quality stuff, you want to go for high quality stuff. And I totally understand why. It definitely brings the quality of living up a notch whenever you're, you know, living out of a van. You guys ever try to put a new glove on whenever your hand's all sweaty and wet? It does not go smoothly.